Tell him, McCluskey. Tell him what time it is.
Little Hand says it's time to rock and roll.
All you people are so scared of me.
Come quietly or there will be trouble.
Man, that's just me.
I'm Batman.
This is Sparta!
There is a tiger in the bathroom!
I'm an excellent driver.
If it bleeds, we can kill it.
Pop quiz, hotshot.
Keep the change, you filthy animal.
Slow ahead. I can go slow ahead. Come on down and chum some of this.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
Hello and welcome to this week's Monday Movie Show on Monday, the 15th of August 2016. So we are midway through August. It's a fairly busy week this week because we got quite a lot to get through. Stuart is here, although he is going to be joining me in just a moment.
I am.
Yes, okay. Right, because you were quiet for a minute. I was like, is he here? Is he not? Is he?
Yeah, it's just that it's really bad timing. I'm waiting for somebody to turn up. I know it's like 9:10 at night in the UK. If you listen anywhere else, especially in the US, it's just mid-afternoon. But I'm waiting for somebody to turn up, and they could turn up at any time. So I'm hoping it's not when I'm doing like a review or reading out something in the chart, because if it is, then it's just going to be quiet from my end, and you might panic slightly.
Yeah. Okay, I got that to look forward to. If you're listening to us live, you can join us in the chat in the bottom right hand corner of your screen. Just click on the little icon there. Give Stuart some hell for if he does just disappear at some point. Feel free to send him loads and loads of abuse. Not me, though. I wouldn't.
I would love it if it is halfway between a review and then I just go completely silent. You go, what's happening?
Yeah.
Is this
Well, I won't know. Exactly, I won't know if it's because of Skype, if it's because of you doing that, or what. I have no idea.
Well, because we're live, and this is the joyous thing about playing it live, I will just duck out. But I will actually see it that I've got to duck out for a couple of seconds, so you might have to do some spiel.
Yeah, hopefully it'll be during a clip, and you can just go, oh, play the clip, and it'll sound really smooth. Yeah.
Smooth. Yeah.
No. Anyway, what have we got on this week's show, Stuart?
Too many films. We're too many films.
Yeah.
It is one of those weeks. So in the cinema section, we're looking at sort of like shark thriller with The Shallows, then comedy with Mike and Dave Need, Wedding Dates, another thriller in Nerve, and Disney remake with Pete's Dragon.
Yep, all of that, of course, coming up after some movie news and box office top 10. But then after those reviews, we'll have a little break. We'll have our DVD and Blu-ray section, which will have the charts for the combined DVD and Blu-ray in the UK. And then this plethora of movies. It's a ton of movies to get through.
Yeah, hopefully something for everybody in sequel, prequel, The Huntsman Winters War, and then we have thriller with Eye in the Sky, drama/thriller with Louder Than Bombs, drama about mathematics with The Man Who Knew Infinity, then foreign drama with
foreign disaster drama
stuff,
yeah,
with The Wave, and then thriller with Criminal, drama with Misconduct. I get to do another Studio Ghibli movie. So animation.
What do you mean? Yeah, what do you mean you finally get to do? You do another Studio Ghibli movie every month, sort of.
This is pretty much the last one I'll probably be doing. But animated movie with Only Yesterday, and then comedy sci-fi with Lazer Team, and to round things off, a movie that's hard to categorise, but it should fall into very dark comedy drama with Men and Chicken.
Yeah, but before that, of course, we're going to have a look at some movie news. And starting with a sad piece of news regarding a actor particularly well known to Star Wars fans. Kenny Baker has passed away at the age of 81. He passed away just this last weekend and was confirmed in the press that had happened. If you do not recognise him or know his name, he was the short person who just sort of measured just over about a metre tall, who actually played R2-D2 in the original Star Wars films and the the trilogy that followed after that. He didn't play the role in J.J. Abrams' film because the role wasn't really in the film that much. It was a very, very short-written role. But he did play the character in the other 6 films, and even played an Ewok in Return of the Jedi. But he's also kind of well known to a lot of people who know the genres of sort of, you know, this kind of weird sort of fiction, things like that. He's known for things like he appeared in Labyrinth, Time Bandits is a great one that he appeared in, and things like Flash Gordon. So he's, you know, one of these actors who's had one of those big careers, but maybe not been recognisable because he's probably been in a lot of things where he's in, you know, prosthetics, playing goblins and weird creatures sort of things. I think he was in the Ron Howard movie Willow as well, which was all about, you know, sort of short people. So he's become, especially sort of a cult known actor, which is a shame to obviously hear about in passing.
Yeah, the one I know him from, apart from Star Wars, and I can't believe I'm admitting to this, is Boobs in the Wood. Now, I was a big fan in the sort of like 90s of these really cheap, pantomimes, which kids go to see at Christmas. Well, Jim Davison used to do adult versions of those, released on video and DVD, and one of them was Boobs in the Wood. And I remember him from that because he used to get the Mickey taken out of him a lot, and I just found it really funny. So he was sort of like an actor who didn't let his size get the best of him, and he sort of like was there just to even ridicule himself. So at least he could do that, but people will definitely know him more famously for playing R2-D2.
Yeah, it's just also notes here I've got that his wife had passed away previously. She passed away in 1993, so it's quite a while. And he's survived by the 2 sons, Christopher and Kevin. So, you know, it's commiserations to them for their loss, and I don't know if they're involved in acting or not, but if they are, then obviously I hope they sort of carry on sort of his legacy.
Yeah.
On to some other Star Wars news then. Regarding Episode 8, John Williams has confirmed that he is composing the score for the film and that he will begin scoring in a few weeks. So he's obviously going to be starting work on that. I don't know if there's been anything said yet about what's happening with Rogue One. I don't think that he's scoring the music for that. Obviously being the next Star Wars film, which isn't a Star Wars film. It's, you know, just set in the Star Wars universe. So what do you think about that? Do you think would you want John Williams doing the same kind of music, or do you think it should be someone else doing something different for Rogue One?
Somebody else, because Rogue One, even though it belongs sort of like in the Star Wars canon, this is the first Star Wars film on the big screen that isn't like one of the episodes. So it would be nice for them to go in a slightly different direction, because if you look at it, it's got the same kind of stuff that we see in Star Wars. So it's got the Death Star, it's got AT-ATs, it's got all that kind of stuff. But what Gareth Edwards is trying to do with it is give Rogue One its own identity. Mm-hmm. And so that's why it's called a Star Wars story rather than be part of the episodes. And that's what each one of these ones, these spin-off ones, are attempting to do. So get somebody else in to do music which might have a same kind of feel to it, but not like John Williams' stuff from previous Star Wars movies.
Yeah, well, that was sort of the thing you'd be looking for. My choice would be probably Michael Giacchino, or maybe John. I can't think of the other. It's not John Williams, but another John. I can't think of his surname. Not John Debney, because it's another one. John someone.
Well, for Rogue One, they've got Alexandre Desplat to do it. And I actually agree with you. I think G.E. Chirino will be a good choice to actually do music for a future Star Wars film as well.
I didn't know Alexander Desplat had already been cast. Well, okay, he's a good composer. I just don't know that he's the right fit for that. But I guess we'll see in December.
Yeah, but he has done some really good music anyway. He's done stuff from like Harry Potter to Argo to Benjamin Button to stuff like that. So he did the music for The Secret Life of Pets. Yeah, so he's done some great music. It's an interesting choice to actually go with. But Godzilla as well. And the music for Godzilla is actually really good. So is the music for Tale of Tales. So he's got a good different catalogue of stuff behind him. So should be interesting to hear what that sounds like. News that I've got, it's been announced that James Wan will produce the new Mortal Kombat film. However, according to Wan, the film will not go into production until after he is finished with the Aquaman movie for DC.
Yeah, well, Mortal Kombat again, well, saying that, I mean, it's Paul Anderson that did it the first time.
Yeah.
And the thing is, he actually did a pretty not too bad job with the first one, but then they did a terrible second one, and then they did an even awful worse TV series. Did you ever see the TV series?
Yeah, I did, unfortunately.
It was terrible.
Surprisingly, though, Mortal Kombat is still the 4th highest grossing video game movie. So that's surprising. But what Warner said is that the reason why it's going to take him a while is because he actually wants to concentrate with it. He wants to make a good film.
Yeah. Sorry, my chair is really, really creaking here.
Is that down to the fact that it's Mortal Kombat, or just the fact that you've got a creaky chair?
No, it's definitely the chair.
More news. According to a recent interview, Jonah Hill has said the MIB 21 Jump Street crossover, MIB 23, is not going to happen due to the complexity of bringing both franchises together.
Yeah, they want it to happen. It'll make loads of money. It'll happen. It may not be with him in it, but it will happen.
That'll be slightly silly then, because they've said that Will Smith and Tommy Lee Jones is not going to be in it, and so if Jonah Hill and Channing Tatum are not going to be in it, then what's the point?
Yeah, well, I think they should maybe try and do a thing where they get like Channing Tatum and Tommy Lee Jones or something, cross them over that way. Have one of them match up with the other. I
doubt Channing Tatum will want to do it without Jonah Hill, because he'll be looking at it on the 21 Jump Street side, and same with Tommy Lee Jones. I doubt he'll want to do it without... I don't even think Tommy Lee Jones is even interested in the Men in Black universe anymore.
No.
So,
have you seen... I mean, looking at the kind of films he's doing at the moment, though, with one of the films in the DVD section that he's in, he could do better, really.
Yeah, he did the last Bond film, but
yeah.
I still don't see... If one of the actors... especially Jonah Hill on the Channing Tatum Jonah Hill side, it drops out. They're just gonna have to try and find 2 other people to fill in their boots to come up with some convoluted plots here. No, the original 2 weren't available, so we had to get these 2 to do it instead. It's just, don't even attempt it.
No, you know what they could do? They could do Channing Tatum and Seth Rogen and do the thing that they did in the spoof credits.
Possibly. Or they could just get Johnny Depp to reprise his role and say he wasn't dead from his appearance in 21 Jump Street.
That still pains me, actually.
Spoilers. According to Variety, Brad Pitt, along with Paramount and Skydance Pictures, are in talks with David Fincher to direct World War Z 2, after director Juan Antonio Bayona dropped out of the project to helm the sequel to Jurassic World.
See, I'm a massive David Fincher fan. He's possibly my favourite director out of maybe a few directors. He is perhaps my favourite director. And the thing is, I don't want him to do this. I as much as I don't have a problem with World War Z 2 happening, because the first one I really liked, and I liked what they did. Obviously, they had the problem with the last third of it, but I actually liked that change they made to the film. But I just don't see him being able to do what he wants to do with it, what he would want to do with it, because he has a weird sort of style, but it's a very pragmatic way that he does film, and I just don't see how he could do that with World War Z. I still want to see him make the other Girl with the Dragon Tattoo films. I want to see those made. As much as they're struggling because of the fact that it was not a big earner, give him a lower budget and give him that, and he will do amazing things with that still. So I don't want him doing this, really. Find someone else to do this. Get someone else who can do that more, because it needs to have that more. I don't want to say action sequence to it, but it does have to. It needs to have that kind of thing to it. And David Fincher, as much as I do love him, isn't an action director. He's not that kind of a director. He is a very kind of different artistic director. And
this is the thing, though. You're going off it from the first film.
Yeah.
The film itself is quite different from the book, because the book is just a collection of different stories, different people's as point of view of what actually happened during World War Z.
But obviously they've got to take on the second film from what happened and what it did in the first film. So
I know, but they can still do it in a different tone. So that doesn't stop from David Fincher to try and bring his own sort of like take on what actually happened. He might bring a very intelligent take on a zombie apocalypse, rather than just going for the same thing we've seen time and time again. Because we're going to get another take on it with the next Resident Evil film in January. So we're sort of like sick of seeing a saturation of over the top, just zombies just charging at people and stuff like that. Getting a director who's not known for doing that kind of film to try and attempt to create something in that universe might actually come up with something completely different. Might come up with a 28 Days Later scenario rather than another World War Z. So I think it might be an interesting take to get somebody like Fincher to do it.
I'd see it if it was him, but still, I have reservations, and not about him, but just because I don't think he's the right fit.
And I think the opposite. So it's nice to have both sides of it, rather than us agreeing.
Yeah. When do we agree?
We have been over the last few months. Reports from CBR are stating that Jason Momoa is in talks to star in the Crow reboot. The Halo director Corin Hardy, who supposedly stepped down from the project, actually didn't, and so he is set to helm the film. Yeah,
even though it's had so many problems with different actors and directors stepping into it and stepping out of it, and are we ever going to see it happen? I won't be holding my breath.
Have you seen the mock-up art of?
I saw something about it, I can't remember though, but I was just kind of like, yeah, that's going to happen anytime soon.
It looks quite comic, doesn't it? It looks like what they've done is they've just took Jason Momoa and his Aquaman costume and just changed it to the Crow.
Yeah, and the thing is, I don't have a problem with Jason Momoa. I know him actually because he started out in one of the Stargate series, which I watched. That was my first time I was introduced to him, and I actually think he's a really good actor when he's given the right kind of roles for him. But then he was in that god-awful Stallone thriller.
I know which one you mean.
Bullet to the Head, which was just awful. And it was a badly written role for him anyway, but it was just terrible, and he wasn't really given much to do, and that was bad. And then, I mean, he was in Game of Thrones at the beginning, and he's given the right kind of role that suited him. So I think Aquaman, I'm hoping, will work for him. The Crow could potentially work for him, but it's a case of it's going to be a bit over the top, I think, for the role. It would be interesting, different take on it and all, but I guess you'd have to see what someone did. But this film has been through so many problems, so many delays. It feels like it's never going to happen.
The only problem I see with it is the fact that Momoa is still shooting Aquaman.
Yeah, and of course Justice League after that.
Yeah, and so he's going to be stupidly busy to try and helm something like The Crow as well.
Yeah, so if it does happen, it's going to be some time off anyway, because he's got he may have finished Aquaman filming. I don't know if that's still going on or if it's finished or what. But
that's still going on.
Yeah.
The film's not due out until the middle of next year anyway, and so because the fact that James Wan has only just finished wrapping up stuff with The Conjuring 2, because that was released about a month ago. So now he's gone into doing Aquaman. So
yeah.
And he's busy as well producing a ton of films.
And then there's
one of his films next week.
Yeah, and then there's going to be obviously the 2-part Justice League film. So it's going to be 2 films he's filming for. Yeah, it's going to be a while, and then probably anything else he might be tied into. I don't imagine he's not doing anything after, Justice League. So he may already be busy with things.
We'll see. DreamWorks have confirmed that The Croods 2 has been delayed to the middle of 2018. I didn't even know they were attempting to do a Croods 2.
What? Croods 2? Oh, yeah.
The Croods 2.
I didn't know about that, though. I'm looking forward to more to The Incredibles 2. That is happening, but it's obviously a while off as well, so...
Yeah, it looks like the sequel to Paul Feig's Ghostbusters is not going to happen after all. The first one has only managed to take $180 million at the worldwide box office off a budget of $144 million. And now you might think, well, that's a plus, but you've got to actually add marketing costs on top of that, which pretty much doubles the budget for it. So the film is looking to set to lose around about $70 million in total.
Yeah, and it's not getting a release in China, which is where it would have probably raked in a fair bit, but because of the whole thing of the images of ghosts and stuff are not permitted or something. Is it not something to do with that?
It's down to religious aspects.
Is it?
But Suicide Squad has not been released in China neither, and that's done pretty decent at the worldwide box office.
Yeah. The thing is with Ghostbusters, as I said again, it was Paul Feig. Paul Feig doesn't match that film. He doesn't take his film seriously. And given, though it is obviously bizarre thing and there's ghosts and everything, that kind of thing, the first 2 films, what they did with it, they treated it as a serious thing, and it happened, and it's bad and all that kind. And this one, it literally was like every few seconds they stopped and winked at the camera and like, it's okay, this is just a film. And that's what Paul Feig's movies have a problem with. He literally has moments where it's just like, yeah, it's not real, it's a film. And that I think is a big problem.
And he didn't help himself by calling all nerds and stuff like that idiots, which just doesn't work. If you're calling out your fans as well for the movies, who's actually going to go and see it for like a second time or third time? So it's sort of like understandable. I don't know what Sony will do. I don't know if they'll look at it and go, you know what, we're going to give it one more try.
Yeah, but saying that,
or if they give a gap before they do that.
Saying that though, I'm calling out, everyone. David Ayer did say something in relation to Marvel, if you recall, which may have particularly not done him any favours, but still, Suicide Squad has done really well. So there's going to be a number of people that were Marvel fans that decided to go and see it and have seen it again.
Look at what happened with the director of Gods of Egypt, Alex Proyas. He just absolutely obliterated critics and stuff like that, and so it doesn't help. You need to actually keep your tongue in your mouth and your brain intact, because when you do badmouth any kind of area, whether it be critics, whether it be fans, when you call them out, you do know that your movie is going to be in a bit of trouble. And I think Ayer has sort of like saved himself a little bit regarding Suicide Squad, but he hasn't done a Proyas or he hasn't done a Feig when they've just called out Proyas with critics and Feig with fans. He pretty much actually loads up the shotgun and releases both cartridges into your brain.
Yeah, unless of course you are U-Bowl and you challenge them to a boxing match.
Which one person actually agreed to.
I know. Yeah. No, I thought did they not actually fight? I thought they did fight.
No, it didn't go ahead.
Oh.
He actually offered up 10 grand as well. He's a nut job. Final piece of news: director Mick G, haven't done that in a while, has confirmed his next film that he will be making will be his Masters of the Universe remake. And this is a director who likes to stick his foot in his mouth. He has said it will be exactly like, in tone, to Guardians of the Galaxy.
Okay.
Mick G, you're an idiot.
Well, you never know. We might see. It could not really be any worse than Masters of the Universe, the one that was from the 80s with Dolph Lundgren.
Still actually quite like that film.
It's so cheesy. Yeah, it literally is. I mean, it's literally once you've seen it, you need to have like a coronary or something because you're just filled with cheese.
Yeah, especially if you stay all the way to the end of the credits and you see Skeletor pop his head up going,
yeah, that's just,
I
Frank
did not
Langella.
know that existed.
Frank Langella in that film, yeah, oh dear.
I really didn't know it existed, and then I saw it was on Sky Cinema on one of the channels, and I watched it, and it was very close to the end of it, so I stuck by to the end of it and watched the credits, and then that popped up and I went, I cannot believe they actually did that.
Yeah.
It was weird. We'll see. UK box office top 10 time, and number 10 is The Legend of Tarzan.
Yeah, very, very sketchy film, not very good at all. Problems with the writing, problems with the characters, which are very poorly developed, or in some cases don't really seem to fit in the film at all. Samuel L. Jackson's character, and the casting of the villain being played by Christoph Waltz is basically just Christoph Waltz playing, Colonel Lander from Inglourious Basterds. It's basically the same kind of character, and it's just awful. It's pretty bad all round.
Number 9 is Absolutely Fabulous, the movie,
which is absolutely boring, not funny. I laughed once, and I admit I'm not an Absolutely Fabulous fan, but I have seen the series on several occasions. I've watched it, I have laughed at it, I thought it was funny. Just not my sort of thing. This, I completely opposite. I just didn't think it was funny at all. Didn't think it was witty as it wants to be. There were some nice ideas that they kind of had in there, which I thought were good. There's like a bit where they go on like a budget airlines bit, and the funny thing is, it's basically just a budget airlines that doesn't care. They throw the peanuts and everything to people. I like that idea. It was badly done. Just wasn't funny in the film, but it was a funny idea. So it had, nice ideas behind it. But then most of the time, it was just literally one of these British comedies made for cinema, which the comedy doesn't translate, and it literally turns out to a 90-minute thing of, let's go somewhere hot and sunny so we can go on vacation.
And number 8 is Ice Age Collision Course.
I still haven't seen this one yet.
Yeah, we harked on in the news there about Ghostbusters looking to make around about a $70 million loss worldwide. I think Ice Age Collision Course is on set to actually make more of a loss, because it's got a budget of around about 110 million. It's only made around about 55 million at the US box office, Worldwide, I think it's probably like 20 million on top of that, 30 million on top of that. So it's looking to be around about, by the end of its run worldwide, about 100 million. You need to add another 100 million on top of its budget for marketing and all that stuff. So by the looks of things, Ice Age Collision Course might actually be 100 million out. So it tells, because I think people are just sick of the series. It's a movie that ran out of steam after the second film. This is the fifth.
It'll probably get another one though, because it'll come out on DVD at Christmas or something, and it'll be like a big Christmas seller.
I don't think so, because it'll be around about the same time as things like a film which we'll get into later on in the top 10, and another film which we'll get into later on in the top 10. So there'll be a couple of films that'll go up against, and kids will be more interested in those two rather than this. Number 7 is Ghostbusters.
Yeah, as we were talking about, it's not done that well. I do think a big problem is Paul Feig, who's got this. He's got this attitude of just doing films as stupid comedies and wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Yeah, that's what it is. And for me, as much as I'm not a big fan of the Ghostbusters films, I think the reason a lot of people love them is because of the fact they're done as like a serious film with that happening, with the weirdness and the bizarreness of the ghosts and all that kind of thing happening, which is what makes it funny. It's the contradictory of it, aspect of it, that makes it work. And it doesn't in this, and the whole, especially the last half hour of it, with the whole almost singing dancing routine bit that it breaks into, I really just kind of, it lost me. I lost patience with it all the way through it. I barely laughed at any part of it. I was giggling a bit about some parts, but I just really was sat there and just like, that's supposed to be funny. It's not. I mean, it's not terrible as it could have been. Excuse me. It's not a terrible film, but it honestly doesn't really. It's like it doesn't even try and reach the bar, let alone raise it.
Number 6 is The Secret Life of Pets.
Yeah, fantastic animation, fantastic fun, lot of witty moments. Unfortunately, a lot of them given away by the trailer, but the rest of the film perfectly fine and has some funny moments and family moments.
Yeah, this is the film that I think will do well at Christmas.
Well, that and the number 2 film.
I think it might just squeak out around Christmas, the film at number 2, because I think it's still got another few weeks in the charts. I think Secret Life of Pets has been in the charts much, much, much longer, so I think that'll be out for Christmas. They might just squeak out.
They're saying that obviously between the two of them, those two films have, that and the number 2 film, which we'll get to, have the highest takings so far in the UK box office between the two of them.
And meld them together and you're over 50 million.
Yeah.
So that's insane. I really like Secret Life of Pets. So number 5 is Star Trek Beyond,
which I really like. The villain is very poorly underwritten and kind of falls apart towards the end. I love the whole thing like being on a planet for a lot of it, and that whole part kind of feeling of the original Star Trek in it. And I definitely like it more than Star Trek Into Darkness, because I had so many issues with that film as a Star Trek fan. I found lots of problems with that. But this is a nice twist that's got funny moments. It's well written. The characters for the majority of it are really well done. They're faithful to the original, versions of them, and I really enjoyed it. I do want to go and see it again. I just haven't had a chance because there's been so many things going on. So it's one of those ones that hopefully before it does go out, because it is kind of dropping out cinemas fairly quickly, hopefully I will get a chance to see it again.
Number 4 is the BFG.
This I still haven't seen yet.
20 million at the UK box office.
Yeah.
Again, it's another one of those films that has pretty much bombed at the US box office. I'm trying to find it. The BFG on a budget of 140 million, which is quite high actually. It's took 53 at the US box office. I think it's because Roald Dahl stuff resonates more so in the UK than it does pretty much across the world, because it's got that very UK sense of humour, the British sense of humour to it. So I don't know how it's done across the globe. It's going to be another film which is going to lose money wise, but it's average. A lot of critics seem to absolutely love it. People who have gone to see it seem to be more siding towards the I'm not sure about this film. I'm sort of like in between. There is stuff to actually really like from the film. Mark Rylance, for example, as the BFG, brilliant motion capture. The way he actually does his dialogue is just fantastic, because it's a lot of gobbledygook to get your brain around, and our brain does not think like that. But the way he actually does it is just brilliant. I just don't think that the humour holds up very well. It's just too childish for me. And so it's a movie that's average, but it's another one of those summer blockbusters that's going to just lose out. Number 3 is Jason Bourne.
Yeah, disappointing. It's kind of It's the thing of that they decided to bring them back, and they found a way to bring back the character and a reason, which is kind of made a bit more personal, which I kind of get what they were trying to do, but it just feels very tacked on. It feels very much just that, we did this not because we could or not because we needed to, but because we wanted to, and just like, we found a way. But it annoys me because there were setups with the last film, the Bourne Legacy, the spin-off one, for reasons for the character to come back, which would have been much more interesting and much more sort of a greater way to do it, bring the character back and give it more of a story, because it doesn't really have much of a story. It is nice to see the character back and see more of it, but it's not it doesn't hit all the buttons that you want it to hit.
Number 2 was Finding Dory,
which I still haven't seen this yet either. I'm way behind on a few.
Yeah, and it's not going to help the fact that you were on holiday in a couple of weeks' time.
No.
So you're going to be worse than Mark Kermode at Radio 5 Live when he's away for like a week and has to catch up. You're going to have a lot to catch up with then.
Yeah.
So that should be interesting in that box office top 10 if you have to actually comment on it. But yeah, Finding Dory, it's slightly under par from Finding Nemo, but that was like a huge, massive bar to achieve to, because Finding Nemo is a classic in the Pixar pantheon. It's still really entertaining. Dory is a really likable character, and I love the fact that it never spoke down to anybody, because it treats everybody with exactly the same, no matter what disability or ability you have. And the fact that all the animals in this movie have some kind of disability is a brilliant thing for Pixar to actually do, because then kids who have got those kind of disabilities at school, who get bullied and picked on, other kids can look at them and go, you know what, why am I doing this? We should just be treating them exactly the same. So it's nicely animated, it's a really good adventure, it never overstays its welcome, but it's just slightly less on quality wise compared to Finding Nemo. And the number 1 is a new entry for the Suicide Squad. Yeah,
which I really enjoy. It seems to be doing really well, and I think it's because of the fact of that it's a fun ride. As much as it is a very flawed film, it's got some problems with narrative, it's got some problems with editing. It's still a fun film to watch. You go into it, you come out of it, it's been a good ride, and people are going back to it. I liked in particular a couple of the character performances, but also the way they're written, and they're taken from the comic books. You have in particular, Harley Quinn played by Margot Robbie, and Will Smith plays Deadshot, who is the Deadshot character for me is fantastically adapted, and I love the character. I love the thing of the way it uses some of the more well-known superhero characters that have a little cameo in the film, and I think it's nice that they're not centre stage, they're just background characters. They exist in that world, but this film isn't about them. This film is about the Suicide Squad.
Yeah, what I find interesting is the fact that you said you really liked Deadshot, but any bets, just like me, sort of like were wondering, Will Smith?
Yeah,
it was a slight worry of mine when I saw the first trailer, because I'm not one of these people who like watches all these TV spots and multiple trailers after that. I try and make my mind up after the first trailer, because I'm finding it really annoying now with the amount of footage that gets released from films. But when I first saw Will Smith's name on it, I was slightly worried. It was just an interesting casting to have Will Smith in a superhero or anti-hero movie, and so I'm sort of like glad that he sort of like proved that he was having fun rather than taking the character seriously. And if you want to listen to the alternate version of our thoughts on Suicide Squad, then listen to Shane's version of what he thought of it on Following the Game. It's not as swear heavy as I thought. I was actually shocked by the end of it, because he didn't go off on a major rant because he hated the film. And he's an insane comic book fan. He's a person who gets like 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 comic books a week. And so he didn't rip into it as much as I thought he would. He probably will actually go back to that on the next Following the Game show, but he hated it. He didn't pretty much like anything to do with it, and he absolutely despised Will Smith's portrait of Deadshot.
I disagree with that. I think he's a very good shot, a very good portrait, a very good, well adapted version of the character, and his reasonings and the way he behaves. I really quite liked it.
That's why I told Shane that I don't think I'm going to actually ask you one when Andy's away on holiday, just to be safe. I think I'll ask somebody else who's not known for swearing a lot, because I think if I bring Shane in and then Suicide Squad is still in the top 10, which is more than likely it will be, he might go off on a swear rant heavy. And I don't want that to happen, not on this show. There is a show for that, not this one.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on then with this week's new film, since we've got a lot to get through.
Yeah, first up is The Shallows. It's directed by Wam Colette Serra. Now, this is a director that sort of like holds a lot of fear in my brain anyway. When his name pops up on films, you start to cry a little bit, because he did House of Wax, which is an awful film. Better than the original, though. The original 1940s film is not very good at all. And then he did Orphan, which is fine for a first watch, and that's about it. And Non-Stop, and Unknown as well, and Gold 2, Living the Dream. So he's got a brilliant
I think this really did a
catalogue.
couple episodes of TV shows as well, didn't he? That were
Yeah, he did The River.
The River,
which
yeah.
Was the,
It was an interesting idea. It just didn't do very well at all.
It was an interesting idea from one episode, but that was from the people who did Paranormal Activity, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so it held up for like one episode, but after that, I got bored of it, actually, to be honest. But yeah, he's directing this, and Blake Lively is the main character who plays Nancy, and it's a very simple, very sort of like stripped back story, and the whole film sort of like follows the theme of the stripped backness of the story itself. She plays Nancy. She's on a surfing trip. She's going to this beach which does not have a name, even though she's trying to coax out the name from a clip which we'll play here in a second. I'm just setting up the story. This is where her mother originally went, and sort of like she's reliving memories of her mother. And it's the perfect surfing spot, and she meets two people at the surfing spot. However, she starts to discover bad things are happening after seeing this huge massive wheel and a big massive chunk took out of this wheel, and lo and behold, there is a giant shark in there, and the shark wants her for dinner. Here's a clip.
You know, I made these plans 9 months ago. The whole reason I planned to come on this trip was to find the secret beach.
Not too many gringos here.
Yeah, bummer.
Gracias a Dios. Is this the one?
Sí. Gracias. Gracias, señor. Y,
No, por favor.
no, please, 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 I
No,
insist.
we were going the same way. I live close by, so don't worry.
Are you sure?
Yes. How you getting out from here?
Uber.
Who's Uber?
Never mind. Thank you, Carlos. Thank you again for taking me here.
Cuídate.
Siempre.
And so it's a very, like I said, simple story. The whole film itself is one of those simplistic films, but that's not to its detriment. Actually, it's to its pluses, because what the director has gone and done is said, you know what, it is a movie about a shark, but the shark is only going to be in the film for about 5 minutes. Overall, total, it's going to be in there for 5 minutes. But I'm going to make the movie all about tension. I'm going to make the film all about the survival of the character of Nancy. And I think Sarah handles the film really well. I think this is by far his best film, because it's very well acted by Blake Lively. She has to spend a ton of the movie in like really bad cold conditions, and well done for her for actually doing that. I would like to see a making of documentary to see how she actually copes with it. But it's really well acted from her. It's very well shot, as Andy alluded to in a little conversation we had earlier on today. The cinematography is very well done, and so I'm glad you pointed that out to me, because I agree with you on that front. It's a nice place, and the camera makes sure that you get both aspects of it, the beautifulness of the shore when she first actually gets there, and you see the waves crashing out, and you see the fact that this is the perfect surfing spot, and the fact it's not like there's not like a ton of people around there just badly destroying this beach. But then you've got the alternate side of it when you do get the huge massive waves, and when darkness does set in and the malevolence from this shark, you get to see the dark side of this secluded beautiful area. And so I think the cinematography is handled really well, and like I said, it's very competently directed by Wam Colette Serra. It flows really well. It doesn't oversteer its welcome, and so overall it's actually a pretty decent film. Not a movie that I would have expected. When I first saw the trailer, I went, oh, not another one of these kind of films. But it surprised me, and actually, surprisingly, this is actually really good.
Yeah, it's a film that it's the way I was thinking when I was trying to think how to kind of succinctly describe it is it's kind of like, and I don't mean this exactly, so don't take it exactly, but it's kind of like if you took Jaws, condensed it into sort of 80 minutes, and made it a kind of a crossover with typical kind of Jaws and a found footage movie, and it kind of is. If you see what you get my point.
A little bit, yeah. But Shane made that point about, is this like Jaws? And I shot him down instantly and said I can sort of like see the thematic thing, obviously both sharks, but I think even though Jaws is a classic, I think this movie is more malevolent than Jaws. It's just because the way he probably realizes that his budget, when Jaws was originally came out, my guess is the budget was quite high for that time when the film came out. This one, I think Sarah didn't have a big budget at all, and so he knew the constraints of his budget, so that's the reason why the shark only appears briefly at times and is only pretty much in 5 minutes of the entirety of the movie. I
was reading something about him saying it, and he said basically the way he viewed it was that if the character of Nancy can't see the shark, then neither can we, sort of thing. So it's,
which I like that. That's a really good way to actually handle a film.
Because it's all mostly told from her perspective, and that's the thing that's really good about it. I really like the way it is shot, and I love the pacing of it. I love the fact that there are some shots in it which are just kind of there lingering. It's not as if anything is, and there's sometimes when you think you're watching it and you go, this is a point where another director would have to make something happen, and he doesn't. He kind of just sits back and lets things happen. He doesn't go. It's like the camera doesn't try and make things happen. The camera is just there, and it's very relaxed in that sense, even though it is then tense at times. It's building tension, and I did think towards the end a couple of moments where it did get a little bit ludicrous, and the shark was a bit kind of went a bit out of character for a shark, really. But for me, I thought it was a bit, but then I went with it and it was still good, and I really enjoyed it. I was surprised as well. It's rated 15. There are some kind of there's a couple of graphic moments in it with people, and I think the majority of the reason it's been rated that more than those, as much as they definitely earn a 15, is there's kind of graphic injury detail, I think it's called, on the
there's
screen.
One guy who gets ripped in half.
And there's also the graphic injury, obviously, of a character dealing with an injured leg, and that's kind of thing.
Poor bird.
Poor bird. But it's a film that it did definitely surprise me in ways that I was not expecting, and that's nice to see. You walk out of it and you go, I was not expecting that, and I really did enjoy it. And it's not that I had fun with it, but I really got into it and I was really impressed with it.
I agree with you in the last 15 minutes. The way Sarah handles it, I don't think it fits as well with the film as it should do. I just think that he realizes he needs to ramp up a lot of things, and I think he just goes a bit too OTT with what happens in specifically the last 5 minutes of the film, and so I agree with you on that front. But that's one of the only blips with the movie.
Okay, next film is Mike and Dave Need Wedding Dates, which is a title and a half. It's based on a true story, very, very loosely on a true story. It's directed by Jake Szymanski. It's based on the true story of the Strangle Brothers, in the movie played by Zac Efron and Adam Devine, who basically in I think it was 2003. They put an advertisement online in things like Craigslist sort of thing, dating thing, where they were looking for a couple of dates to go to their little sister's wedding. And now in reality it was them looking to find a couple of dates to take along respectively to their sister's wedding in New York, because of the fact that the two of them, whenever they went as kind of bachelors to a wedding, they acted like bachelors, and disaster eventually happened. This time the story's been changed slightly to make it interesting, so that they're going to Hawaii. They bring out an advert like this, it becomes a big thing. They go on to like a morning TV thing, and they end up then sort of blowing up the whole thing with all these women coming and trying to interview them. Cue in the two characters of Tatiana and Alice, played by Aubrey Plaza and Anna Kendrick, who are these two kind of Well, they're kind of like the stoner chick sort of versions of the characters of Dave and Mike. But the thing is, the ads that they've taken out and what they've said on the TV is that they're looking for, respectable girls, nice girls. They're not looking for anyone who's going to kind of cause problems. So, of course, the two of them thinking, we can do this, we can pretend to be this, we can go respectable, and get us on basically a free holiday to Hawaii. And of course, the two of them end up meeting up with Dave and Mike, and here's a clip. You'll hear what happens.
Check this out. The kids in my class are gonna love this story. I'm a school teacher.
You're a school teacher? Wow.
Oh, I think they spelled frittata wrong on the menu. I always notice words and spelling because I'm a teacher and that's what I do.
That's... So, Alice, what do you do?
Manage a hedge fund.
You manage a hedge fund? I don't even know what a hedge fund is.
Oh, so there's a regular fund, and then there's a hedge fund. And our fund, we hedge it hard.
Oh, wow.
And I get in the morning and I'm like, how's the hedging coming? You've been hedging? You hedged much? And it's like too big to fail, corporate greed, bailouts. In a New York minute, everything can change, on the floor of the NASDAQ and the UN, and then Fannie Mae, Bernie Mac, and D.L. Hughley. Alice, you want some water? Yeah.
That's so smart.
That is.
So, as you can hear in that clip, it really had all these little things, and the thing is, it's a film that I have to admit there are times when I did laugh at it. Largely, though, you basically have Zac Efron here and Aubrey Plaza, who were in earlier in the year together in a movie, Dirty Grandpa, which is without a doubt one of the worst films ever to have been made. And they're basically playing the same characters, only dumber. You have this thing going on there, but you also have this story of the brothers and their sister and their father who gives them this instruction, they've got to do this, and then they're on the holiday and the girls do not make it particularly easy to not be causing problems and stuff. And there are a couple of kind of big set piece bits which are humorous and do crack you up. There's a couple of other bits as well which are questionably a bit tasteless humour. It never ever delves into the Dirty Grandpa level of bad taste humour. So it's in that regard, it's definitely a step up to it. As I say, I laughed at a few moments. There were a couple of scenes, especially involving, they have a cousin, Terry, played by Alice Watterland, who is just very kind of on the nose humour, and that's part of the questionable humour at a couple of points. And there's some moments that are laughable, there's some moments that are just kind of and I was sitting on a screen that was fairly full. The audience themselves seemed to be giggling and laughing a lot about it. Some people were, when you're sitting in a cinema with a whole bunch of people, you get to know the kind of people that will laugh at a joke and the kind of people that will laugh at something that you get as well. And there was kind of a mix of both, so it all round kind of did well enough to get laughs from everyone. I didn't laugh a lot as a lot of the other people did, but I know it's not terrible. I didn't love it. I didn't think it was absolutely worse. I definitely don't think it's Dirty Grandpa 2, but it's an okay film. It's just you were asking me about which one to try and see, of this and Nerve and all this, and I said to try and see Nerve because of the fact of that I know that you'd like that more. I think if you saw this, you'd hate it.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if that's the case. My cinema do a special on a Tuesday where it's only £4 to get in. I don't even think I would actually pay that to see this, to be honest, because I watched the trailer and there's like two versions of the trailer. There's a clean up version of it, and I went to see it was Suicide Squad that I went to see last week, and they showed the unclean version of the trailer was so with the swearing put in it, and I just watched it and went, I can see that this was from the people behind The Hangover. Because it's from the people behind The Hangover, and it's just no.
Yeah.
No, thanks.
Yeah, exactly. It's not, as I say, it's not terrible, but it's definitely not kind of thing that's going to win you over.
Yeah. On to Nerve then. From director Henry Juice and Errol Schulman. Now, you might actually know these two people from the TV series Catfish. They also did the last two, not including the marked ones, Paranormal Activity films. So they've got a brilliant record, haven't they? One of the guys who worked on Catfish went off to direct We Are Your Friends. So the Zac Efron film. It didn't do very well at all at the box office. So this one, it stars Emma Roberts, who plays sort of like the recluse V. She's got this over-the-top, insane friend called Sydney, played by Emily Mead, who's part of this interesting online phenomenon called Nerve, which is a game where you either participate in it or you're a watcher of it. Now, if you're a watcher, you pay a standing fee, and you're able to watch the goings-on, but then you're able to set tasks for the people who participate in it. Now, they get given dares and a set amount of money. Once they complete this dare, or they've got to film it as well, they get that money. The more money they accumulate, the more extreme dares they do. At the end of it, two people go head-to-head to supposedly win the ultimate jackpot. Now, V, like I said, she's more interested in photography, especially she has a crush on one of the jocks of the school where she's at, and a friend, she's more interested in doing these extreme dares. However, V, just out of nowhere, decides to, you know what, I'm going to participate in this thing. And so her tasks start off very simple at first, and then they start to increase more so when she comes across the character of Ian, played by Dave Franco. And then the tasks get more extreme, going everywhere from going into a shop and trying on a really expensive dress and then having to escape from it, to the thing that this clip is going to allude to.
Blindfolded on the motorcycle.
You ready?
Yeah.
All right, remember, you're my eyes.
Okay. Green.
Hold on.
Yeah.
Just keep your eyes open.
Okay.
Hey, I know you're scared, but you gotta talk to me, V.
Okay, wait, no.
Lean, left or right, you are in control.
Okay, speed up.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, the next light is green.
Good, all right, you got this.
Okay, next light is...
Come on, stay with me, what's going on?
Next light is green. Faster.
Now, the thing with Nerve is there are elements of it that works, and there are elements of it that doesn't work. The elements that do work are all dares, and actually the conversations between V and Ian. They work really well. The stuff that doesn't work is pretty much everything in between, because the way Joost and Shulman have done it is they've done the stuff in between like frenetic teenagers at a rave, because that's how it just feels like. It feels disconnected from the dares that's going on and the stuff of Nerve and the uncovering of what Nerve actually is. The fact that they figure out that Nerve isn't just tied down to one server. It's every single time when somebody joins, they instantly become a server, so it becomes pretty much impossible to try and track down the epicenter of Nerve. That's the interesting stuff of Nerve. It's just it would have been better if it was actually stitched together much more coherently than the way they've done it. And so it's a movie that's got some really good ideas. It's a movie that's not very pulse pounding. Only I would say the scene which the clip was about was Dave Franco's character. He's blindfolded. He's actually got some tape across the helmet that he's wearing. And Emma Roberts' character, she has to guide him to reach 60 miles an hour. And now that's really well handled. It's just some of the other challenges are a bit lame. And so, but still though, I think the challenges is the part of Nerve which works. The part of Nerve that doesn't work is pretty much everything else in between. So it's a good film, but it's not like an intelligent enough film that Joost and Shulman think it is.
I got to saw this a couple of weeks ago at a preview, and the thing is, one of the things that when I saw it in a preview, it was actually pretty much a full screening, and you get that sense when you can feel when the audience is in something when they're not. And the problem with this film is that it's a film about, as you said, there's dares there. There's a dare when someone is having to walk across a ladder, and the question of are they going to walk across, or are they, it's a ladder up 6 stories high. Are they going to make it, or are they going to fall off, sort of thing. And there's things like that where the direction, unfortunately, is very flat. And by flat I mean it's very simple. It doesn't really do anything to hype up the fact that it's 6 floors up in the air, the fact that the character could fall and potentially die, or it doesn't do anything to get you potentially sitting there white knuckling, which is what it really wants to do. It doesn't build the tension. It doesn't have that almost horror aspect to it, which is what it needs to get that kind of adrenaline rush from it. And that is a big problem, because the film is kind of about that. It's about doing a dare, and doing a dare that will make you so nervous the fact you're doing it that you could potentially fall to your death and that sort of thing, and or die in a bike accident because the person riding can't see, sort of thing. And it never manages to capitalize on the setup, on those things, and I do, as you did as well, you alluded to there, it's got some nice ideas in it. I love the story ideas and the idea of the whole thing of Nerve, what it is, and the whole thing of that's going on, that there is this history to it and how that's all connected, and I like that. You have in there playing Emma Roberts' mother, being played by I forget her name now. I'm terrible for his names.
Yeah.
Juliette Lewis.
Yeah.
Who literally is just like, you're like, what? Of all the actresses they could have cast, Juliette Lewis is the one that's completely just wrong. You should have cast someone else in it, but just not her. Which is kind of a throw-off thing, and her character is basically completely pointless throughout the most of it. I found it's a film that has been, I think it's definitely better written than it's filmed. I think it's a film that has a fantastic soundtrack that I love. I love mix of the soundtrack and the score by Rob Simonson, which I have been listening to for the last couple of weeks since I saw the film, because it's really grown on me, and I love that aspect of it. It's got this really great kind of pulse beating beat to it, and I really like that. It's just the film itself doesn't have that.
There's a band who's on the soundtrack called Severches. It's spelled really weird, which if you're getting into that kind of music, I think you like them.
Yeah, Swert. I looked into them and stuff. Yeah, Swert.
Severches or something.
Yeah.
I think it's pronounced like that, but they've got some really good stuff. They actually did.
It's spelled with a W, which may be Polish or something.
CVRCH, something like that. Anyway, but they did the soundtrack to Mirror's Edge Catalyst, which it's got that feel to it, and they are a pretty decent band. Yeah,
and it's basically, it's a film that you'd have all these great elements, and normally if it's normally the other way around, you can have a film which has loads of bad elements but end up being greater than the sum of its parts. This unfortunately has loads of good elements and just doesn't put them together and string them together well. I have to say, I think it's badly directed. And that is the problem with it, because it's got some really great sort of not cinematography, but the set dressings. There's lots of moments in it where it's set up with, it's night time and there's loads of neon lighting everywhere, which gives it off this evening kind of weird mood feeling to it, and it's really kind of helped with that. But I just, all the way through it, I just kept myself going, where's the buzz? Where is it? Where is the energy for this? And it's a film that is unbelievably less than the sum of its parts, and it's a shame, because it has a lot there which could have worked, should have worked, just didn't.
You can tell that the directors behind it were somebody who worked on Catfish, because it's got that. Catfish was an interesting premise from the directors of Juice and Shulman. It was an interesting idea, and I think it's run its course, and they try to bring that into the last 2 Paranormal Activity films and failed miserably. And now I think they're trying to bring that also into this, and just the way the directors direct, they think they're hip, they're down with the kids kind of stuff, the jargon that your parents would actually speak. It just doesn't work under a different guise, under a different directors or director. It might have been a coherent film, but I completely agree with you on the direction front. It's the director's fault that the film itself becomes messy, whereas the ideas behind it would have been much better under the hands of competent directors.
Mm-hmm. Okay, the last cinema release we're covering this week is Pete's Dragon, the remake of the 1970s animation, I think, or live action film with animation.
I think it's like 82, 83.
Maybe late 70s, early 80s, definitely that period. You have, this is more of a kind of a reimagining, retelling. It's a very different version.
77.
70s, yeah, I thought it was about 70s. Very, very different version of it. It's directed by David Lowery, who also had a hand in the screenplay with Toby Halbrooks. And you have the character of Pete, played by Oakes Fegley, who is, at the beginning of the film, we see him as a 5-year-old out in the middle of nowhere in the woods with his parents driving along the road. They have an accident swerving to avoid a deer, and it ends up that his parents don't survive. He then is sort of alone walking in the forest, sort of, no idea what's going to happen, and bumps into this big, friendly dragon. That he then names as Elliot after the book that he has there, that he sort of has and survives the car crash with. We cut to 6 years later. He is then sort of this wild boy that lives in the woods, talks to this dragon Elliot, which is there, and reveals that it has the ability to go invisible and sort of disappear as a camouflage sort of thing. And he ends up sort of encountering a sort of forest ranger played by Bryce Dallas Howard, who sort of has heard of these stories of potentially of the a dragon in these parts. It's a family kind of tale that's been passed down to her by her father, played by Robert Redford, who claims years and years and years ago to have seen himself a dragon in the forest. Here's a clip.
You looking for something?
Oh, you scared me. Weren't you asleep?
Well, the same reason you're not, I suppose.
I guess you heard about the boy.
I did. Word travels fast in this town. How long has he been out there?
6 years.
6 years? Nobody can survive in that forest for 6 years. At least not alone.
Well, he says he wasn't alone.
He drew this?
He says it's his friend from the forest. And it reminded me of...
I know what it reminded you of. That one?
How old was I when you drew this for me?
So you have this whole thing of the dragons there. You have Grace, who is going sort of in a relationship with Jack, played by Wes Bentley, whose brother, played by Carl Urban in the film, is a logger that actually runs into Elliot one day and gets scared of his life, decide that he needs to hunt and capture Elliot. And there's that sort of storyline going on as well. And these are kind of elements that they've taken from the original film and changed the structure, changed the ability, changed the whole look of Elliot, and made him into actually a furry dragon sort of thing, which is a bit sort of an odd thing. But there is a bit of a problem with the film. Firstly, in that you have this whole sequence at the beginning which shows, the setup of Elliot the dragon and the setup of him and Pete's kind of relationship, that he's taken care of him and he's just very much a part of his world and that sort of thing. And there's a long sequence at the beginning of the film which I just felt very much was a bit over indulgent and self-indulgent to go into a bit more than it needed to, almost as if it was just trying to fill up the film a bit with magical dragon flying sequences, which are very nice and nicely handled, but it just feels very slowly paced and feels you're kind of going, okay, get on with it a little bit, don't be so long on this, do a little bit, fair enough, but don't take a whole load of the chunk of the film and do that. And then it turns into the whole thing as well towards the end of the hunt for the dragon, and is it real and is it not, and that happening and blah blah blah, and very very much is Disney ticking the box list of things and going that, and it's not bad, it's very much Disney by the numbers. And you can do that schmaltzy thing. You have the whole thing of the always somebody in danger, and Elliot is shown to be a big monster and then he's not a big monster and that sort of thing. It's very much, as I say, a list of all these things, and you would go through it and go, yep, got that, yep, got that, there it is, that there, and there's that one, yep, and that's what you go through it. And I have to admit as well, by the end of the film there was a moment in it where it did bring a tear to my eye, and it did get me emotionally. So it does have that there, it just doesn't have enough of it. And I've walked out of it and I was just kind of, as much as it did get me, I was just kind of like, yeah, that was good, and it got me on these couple of beats, and it was just the rest of the film I was just like, it feels very much like if this had been Spielberg doing this, or even like J.J. Abrams, there would have been a lot more of that kind of that heart to it, that that emotion to it. And by the end of it, I would have been a babbling mess. I would have been an absolute bubbly mess, and I wasn't. And I'm not saying that I want to be a bubbly mess by the end of it, but I want that experience from a film that's called Pete's Dragon, given that I grew up with the original one, and I think the original one is far, far better.
Oh well then. I'm just going to leave it at the oh well part. Oh well.
Yeah. But that's it for this week's cinema sections. We're going to have a quick break, after which we'll be back with this week's home releases, and starting off with the DVD and Blu-ray top 10.
The From Page to Screen movie cast. So they have 9 times out of 10 they have to send it back to you unopened or just throw it in the garbage can.
Things don't always look exactly as we envision our life to look, but sometimes it works out and turns out even better.
Gregor Fisher, his bacon number is 2 because he was appeared with January Jones in Love Actually, and January Jones and Kevin Bacon appeared in X-Men First Class together.
I've got to say, the very Harold and Kumar 3D Christmas, now that just makes me want to rush out.
It's about the acting, about the writing. That's really what theatre is for me.
Probably had more names than Prince or whatever. Never mind, there's a joke for the oldies. It'd be like, who's Prince? Who's he? I'd just like to see Mr. Freeze hiring his bad guys, going, right, okay, so you're a psycho, right, can you ice skate? Head over to iTunes, Spreaker and Stitcher and put in the search box From Page to Screen.
Right, welcome back to this week's Monday Movie Show. We're into the Blu-ray and DVD section where we have a lot to get through, so we better steamroll through it.
Yeah, got The Huntsman, Winters War, Eye in the Sky, Louder Than Bombs, The Man Who Knew Infinity, The Wave, or Borgian, I think it's called, Criminal, Misconduct, Only Yesterday, Lazer Team, and Men and Chicken.
And on top of that, we have our TV movie of the week, the overall movie of the week, but we'll start things off as we normally do with the Blu-ray and DVD top 10.
Yep, starting at number 10 with My Big Fat Greek Wedding 2.
Before I get onto that, I just thought I would allude to a couple of films we reviewed on last week's show which failed to make the top 100. That was Where to Invade Next, Brand New Testament.
I'm disappointed by Where to Invade Next not making in the top 100.
Southbound, Bastard, and Remember. None of those 5 made either the Blu-ray/DVD top 10, so the combi top 10, or even the DVD top 10. And Sing Street only went in at number 24, and Tale of Tales only went in at number 19.
Yeah, I can understand Tale of Tales because it's a kind of hard sell.
But Tale of Tales bettered Sing Street.
Yeah, I'm disappointed about
that.
It's
annoying.
Well, it's annoying, but it's kind of, it was a more mainstream film, even though it's a hard sell. Sing Street didn't really have a lot behind it, really.
I still would have much preferred Sing Street in there. But My Big Fat Greek Wedding 2, it's a very stereotypical Greek film. It takes the exact jokes you would expect to be levied at Greek people and then just rolls with it. It doesn't work.
The original BFG is at number 9.
Yeah, see this one over the Spielberg one, because there's you, when you review Pete's Dragon just there, you said it would have been nicer if it was directed by Spielberg. Spielberg did the BFG instead. So I would have actually loved to have seen the director of Pete's Dragon do the BFG and Spielberg handle Pete's Dragon. But yeah, the BFG, the original one, is much better.
Yeah, that could have been an interesting turnaround. Number 8 is Finding Nemo.
Yeah, which again, when we did the box office top 10 regarding Finding Dory, Finding Nemo is the better of the two, but just slightly better of the two. It's a classic. It's brilliant.
Deadpool at number 7.
Sweary-tastic. And a lot of fun.
Yeah. New entry at number 6 from Midnight Special.
Yeah, I'm surprised that Midnight Special made it in the top 10, and like I said, unfortunately Sing Street didn't. But Midnight Special, that's not to say that Midnight Special is a bad film. Apart from the last 10 minutes, which is very, very weird and doesn't feel like it fits the film, the rest of the film itself is very interesting, very well acted, very well directed. It feels like a Spielberg-esque, and I would give him Spielberg a lot of name drops on this week's show, but it feels very Spielberg-esque.
I think more very kind of John Carpenter-esque.
I think a mixture of them both. If John Carpenter and Spielberg directed a film together, this would be it. This would be their love child. And Midnight Special has got a very 80s feel to it, and so it works for it. It works for it very well.
Animation at number 5 with Batman: The Killing Joke.
I've not seen it.
Yeah, I didn't think it was a particularly good adaptation because it's based on a comic, but it's an hour and 15-minute long film. And the comic is only sort of the last 45 minutes of it. If they had just done the 45 minutes, it would have been better, and they still don't really adapt it very well. It's a shame because the animated films for the Batman films are actually pretty good. This is not very good at all. The first half hour of it is added on stuff that they've just tacked on, and it's a mess. It really is. Number 4 is London Has Fallen.
Speaking about a mess, there you go.
Yeah.
This is like, if you were relating this as a dessert, it's like an eaten mess. It's not like an apple crumble, but it tastes nowhere near as nice if it was an eaten mess as well. Or you could look at it as the fact that your mum's decided to go, you know what, let's cook dessert, and she can't even cook. So she ends up throwing the cookbook into the oven, and that's what you're going to get. It's an absolute car crash of a movie. It's bad. It's really bad.
Yeah, I just wish London Has Fallen had actually fallen out the chart. It's odd as well. It's the one film, it's one of the few films that's actually staying in the same place when everything else is moving down.
You've got there's a line in the film which is indicative of the quality of the movie, where you've got one of the news journalists saying most of the known landmarks of London have been decimated. Most of the known landmarks? There are unknown landmarks in London?
Zootropolis at number 3.
Yeah, we've said every single week that it's a really good film, and we stick by it. It is a really, really good film.
Okay, a new entry for Eddie the Eagle at number 2.
I'm glad to see this in the top 10, because it's directed by Dexter Fletcher. It's his 4th film, and I love Dexter Fletcher's films. When we reviewed it last week, we just patted him on the back as much as we're doing with Spielberg this week. But yeah, it's just brilliantly directed. He knows how to do down-to-earth kind of films, and especially considering the character of Eddie the Eagle, he's only known in the UK, and outside of the UK, he's only known for what he did at the Winter Olympics alongside the Jamaican bobsleigh team. So both of them were pretty much vying against each other to try and take the limelight. And Eddie the Eagle will just sort of like pip them to the post. And if a movie, when you know how it ends, still gets you on the edge of your seat, and still you egging Eddie on to do the best jump of his life, you know the outcome still. If it manages to do that, then you know it succeeded. That's exactly what it's done. Taron Egerton is really good in it. Hugh Jackman is just enjoying himself. And so in a good way as well. So it's a really good film.
Yep, and so the number 1 film is still Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice.
Yeah, the Ultimate Edition, whatever edition you're watching. The second week at number 1, I still feel exactly the same with BVS Dodge as I did the first time I watched it. It's average at best.
I like it more. I think the Ultimate Edition is a lot better. Very much better pace, very much a lot of things not cut out, and the extra half hour does add a lot more sort of better pacing and things to it. I think it works a lot much better than the theatrical one.
Yeah, there's a few bits and bobs which is in the Ultimate Edition which does make the film feel better, but it's just marginally better. First review then.
The Huntsman Winters War, which is directed by Cedric Nicholas Troyan. It is a odd thing of that it is a prequel and a sequel to Snow White and the Huntsman. It is the continuation for the character of the Huntsman played by Chris Hemsworth. Snow White is not making appearance in the film. Kristen Stewart is not in the film at all. There is a moment where she is alluded to, and you see her in kind of a silhouette, obviously played by another actress, to sort of explain her away. But the film starts off with a sequence that happens introducing the younger Huntsman as a young boy named Eric. You have him, he is raised to be a sort of a member of this army for Queen Freya, played by Emily Blunt, who is a queen that through tragic events has learned and developed the ability to just basically freeze things and create frost. That she has within her heart, basically as a result of tragic events that happened, and we see them early in the film. Queen Freya is the sister of Ravenna, Charlize Theron's character from the first film, and this being obviously set before those events, you have the introduction of them, the sisters, and that's how that's all sort of connected. It has a long kind of introductory sequence, about a half hour, the first half hour of the film. And during this, there's also another girl in the army that grows up with Eric, played by Jessica Chastain, who plays Sarah, who is sort of a lover with him, but ends up sort of under the circumstances of what happens, seeing him as being a traitor to their army, to their cause. And eventually, after then the events of Snow White and Huntsman. The mirror has made its way, has been stolen and is sort of missing. The Huntsman, realizing how bad this is and the effect it has on people, decides he's going to go out and try and capture it. And of course, when he runs into people, including Sarah, things not necessarily working out for the two of them, considering their obviously past relationship. Here's a clip.
I know why you're not talking.
Do you?
You notice the sparks between me and Mrs. Broman. I don't know what to say, she's my type.
Loud and angry.
Well, that's what I'm used to, isn't it?
Well, I'm awfully sure you'll have a good life together.
Aye, we would. But there's a problem. Another woman. A bit taller, not as pretty, mind you.
She sounds far too clever to waste her time with you.
Well, I remember at one time we were caught up in a net together. This was a long time ago.
Are you the hero of every story you tell?
Well, that's because I'm very brave. Which is why I'm going to save you from drowning.
And how do you expect?
Some unpredictable waters around here. It's not me.
You're a right galoot.
So are you.
And as you hear there in that clip, they have accents as well. Chris Hemsworth doing, well, terrible, but better than his accent in Snow White and the Huntsman. Just barely better. And you heard there just Jessica Chastain doing a accent which is it's better than Chris Hemsworth, I'll say that. That's about as good as I can be towards it.
Really?
Yeah.
I actually think it's worse.
I think
she actually does use the word galoot.
Yeah, that's the word usage in some parts of it is bad, but the actual accent throughout it is a lot more consistent than Chris Hemsworth. Chris Hemsworth's accent is all over the place. It's like it's like a Russell Crowe accent. It's like Russell.
I think he understands that his accent is really bad, and so he goes, you know what, I'm gonna stop it. But yet Jessica Chastain still tries her best to do the Scottish accent, which it fails miserably.
It's just Chris Hemsworth literally has you could literally have a tattoo on his head saying I went to the Russell Crowe school of voice acting. I went
to Scotland and brought back a candy rock and a postcard.
And the thing is, the film is not anything particularly much better. It has got, I would say, probably a better story than Huntsman Winters War. The Snow White and Huntsman. But Winters War is basically it's the sequel that nobody wanted. It's maybe a little bit better than the first film, but that's only because the first film was so poor and so badly paced and just has this weird thing. You have this weird thing in here as well of a couple of the dwarfs that are left over, basically a new one introduced. There's one character that carries over with Nick Frost's character, who brings in his cousin, played by Rob Brydon. Yeah. See, I can do a better accent than Chris Hemsworth. And you have this whole thing of you have then these two female dwarves played by Sheridan Smith and I think the other one is Alexandra Roach, but it's basically it's a mess of a film. It's really pointless. It does have one action sequence that I thought was fairly nicely done, which is a battle against a whole bunch of trolls. The whole thing of the Queen and the mirror, by the end of it, has some nice ideas, which I will admit I liked that idea of what they did with it. But honestly, as I said, sequel I did not want, sequel I did not care for, because the first one was just so poor. And that's being polite.
It's a sequel and a prequel that nobody wanted, because it tries to do the best of both worlds and fails on both accounts. It's not very interesting. It's really bland, it's really blasé, and nothing happens for a good chunk of the movie. And considering that it's a fairy tale, fantastical kind of film, you expect something to happen to it. Even though I didn't like the three Hobbit movies, at least after little areas where there was talking between the characters, something happened. Whereas this one, there's a chunk of a good 30-35 minutes where absolutely nothing occurs whatsoever. And so you pretty much fell asleep by the time it gets to its supposed big crescendo, when it just feels like it's taking ideas from the film Frozen and then stripped out the musical numbers and going, nah, that'll do. That's it.
Yeah.
Eye in the Sky, then, directed by Gavin Hood. Again, I think I've looked out with movies this week regarding their stories, because it's a very simplistic story, and that's what it needed. It stars Helen Mirren as Colonel Catherine Powell, and now she's a UK-based military officer. She's in command of these drones, which are used to capture terrorists in Kenya, to seek out terrorists in Kenya. You've got a person who controls these drones, as played by Aaron Paul, and remotely controls them, and a small little team that he's there. And he is tasked with keeping an eye out on this small little area of a place in Kenya where something bad might occur. And lo and behold, it does. They discover that a few people, which is on their most wanted list, is in there, and they are plotting some kind of... they're building together an explosive device, and they are plotting a terrorist attack on something. And so it's up to Colonel Catherine Powell to try and stop this. At first, they're trying to garner evidence and then ultimately send in soldiers to break it down. However, over time, that can't be the case, and so they need to use a missile strike to take them out. This is complicated by a little girl who decides to get in the way, selling bread. Here's a clip.
What's the plan, Catherine?
We need to put a hellfire through that roof right now.
I told you they came
To witness a capture, not a kill. Give me a capture option.
We no longer have a capture option. Any action on the ground will lead to an armed confrontation, which we will not be able to contain.
They're watching. Even with the vests, we need their approval for a strike.
Just tell them we've got Danford in our sights. I mean, that alone should justify using a hellfire. The vests are just a bonus.
Danvers a British citizen. They want her alive.
They cannot have her alive. Frank, I've tracked her for 6 years. This is the closest I've ever got. So, we need to expand our rules of engagement right now to protect the civilian population. A hellfire through that roof is our most effective option.
We have to know that we're legally in the clear.
And so in that clip there, you also heard Alan Rickman, and down on the ground, used as sort of like help, a spy in a way, is Barkhad Abdi's character. And now he uses an interesting thing. He uses an old Sony phone to control a drone, which is in the shape of like a fly, to try and discover more information out. And it's up to him to try and rescue this girl so the thing can go off. Now, the thing with Eye in the Sky is, if you're going into this film expecting big massive explosions a la Michael Bay, then you're going to be severely disappointed. If you're expecting a film which is on the same kind of lines as last year's Good Kill, it's got slightly more in common with that, but again, it's not as explosive as that. This is a movie that's concentrating on what happens in the background of all of this stuff, rather than soldiers on the ground trying to destroy stuff. This is a film that concentrates on the people who need to make the decisions.
If I can say, this is kind of like the courtroom version of this. It is the courtroom drama version of those events. That's the way I view it, kind of thing.
It is them in the background, the ones who make the ultimate decisions. It's the ones who don't push the buttons. It's about the people who tell the people to push the buttons. And so it's a film that's more of a drama rather than a thriller. And so if that turns you off, then you're not going to find this interesting at all. Me, however, I find this kind of stuff really interesting. Movies that look at sort of like the background stuff. And I find that fascinating, a film that's brave enough to actually do that. And Gavin Hood does that. It's slow-paced, and it's intentionally slow-paced, and there isn't a lot for the characters to do. There isn't a lot for any of the actors to do. They're not running down huge, massive streets to try and stop stuff. The only person who does that is Barkhad Abdi. It's just all about them in their specific roles, pretty much in rooms, trying to prevent this terrorist attack from occurring. And so it's very intelligently directed, very well acted, Helen Mirren especially, even though, like I said, they don't have a lot to do. Aaron Paul, he's just pretty much, you might as well just be playing a video game, because that's exactly what he's doing. He's sitting behind a joystick, and he just has a few decisions which he's told to do. One, which he ultimately tries to persuade them to not do. That's his character, and he's got somebody beside him who that person needs to work along with them. So it's an interesting character film rather than a movie that demands like lots of explosions. There is one explosive scene in it, and so that helps the film as well. So overall, the film is very interesting, very intelligently directed, very well acted as well, and very well made. I actually really like the film.
I really liked it as well, and the thing I love about it is that it's one of these films that it's got this kind of big moral quandary thing in it. But the thing that's interesting about it is that it's a film that it doesn't say to you one way or the other what it should be. It's kind of weirdly objective, and yet it's right in there in the middle of it, in the thick of it, and it doesn't just go, there's this thing, you know, do you do this, do you do that, you know, this will happen if you don't, blah 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 blah. It goes, well, there's this thing, you could do this, and this, and or you could do this, and this, and it kind of makes the whole point of it makes the point of both sides of it, of the whole thing. It doesn't just it you know, doesn't shy away from telling you the whole risks of what would happen, and I love that. You have characters, and it does that through the characters, because you have characters who want to do, it's basically the whole thing of, you know, do they fire the missile, do they blow up the thing, and there's the question of, there's the people in there are people that are pushing for it, there are people that are pushing for it not to happen, and there are people in the middle, there are all these people who are going, you know, I think I need to refer up because of the fact that they don't want to say. And it has that thing of that kind of air of authenticity because of that, because the characters all kind of ring true to people, and they're realistic, and none of them feels at any point like they're just there for, you know, making up the numbers of the cast. They all feel involved, they all feel emotionally kind of connected with it and the events, and what, you know, feeling the pressure and the tension of it that builds up from that, especially from basically phoned in performances for the most of it as well. It's really impressively handled, I think, by Gavin Hood. It is, again, let's say, a moral thing, which his last film being Ender's Game, which had a big kind of morality thing to it all the way through it, and I really, really like his view on that and the way it's done, and you can see that in his filmmaking here. He's got that, and it definitely drives him and drives the film, but again, without it being over preachy. It doesn't at the end of it, it's a film that you'll be at the end of it and you'll go, it doesn't go, you'll think this or you'll think this, it goes, what do you think? It leaves it at the end of it, you'll be like, what do you think about that? And that's what I love about it. It's a film that it doesn't give you the answers, it doesn't say to you there are no real answers, but it's about, you know, it's a kind of film that tells you something about yourself, which is a very hard thing to do.
Right, we need to swiftly move on.
Yeah. Louder Than Bombs, which is a not actually to do with bombing. The title is to do with the whole thing of a family that suffers the loss of the mother of the family, and you have the father of the family played by Gabriel Byrne. You have his two sons played by Jesse Eisenberg and Devin Druid, and it's set after the events of the mother, who is played in sort of flashbacks and quick sort of shots of footage, played by Isabel Huppert, who plays Isabel, who is a sort of a war photographer and has been killed while she's been away in a country filming war events, and because of this, all of her sort of film studio and all her belongings such are still in the home. Jesse Eisenberg, who has left home years before and now comes back having just become a father, is there to help sort of clear out her studio and go through all that with her father. His younger brother Conrad, played by Devin Druid, who is very withdrawn and just kind of gone into playing video games all the time, and you have the whole thing of that this has taken a little while since the mother's passed away, but Jean, played by Gabriel Byrne, who has kind of moved on since the events of that happening, but has not moved on fully to, as I say, clearing out the studio and doing all those sort of things which are getting to the point of now needing to be done, and so of course he is then talking with the woman he's kind of moved on with, in sort of a secret relationship, while realizing that he's, you know, just struggling with his last at home remaining son. Here's a clip.
He thinks I can't hear anything when he's on those earphones, but, you know, I know that he's up late every night playing with games with these kids from New Zealand or Japan or wherever. So I got this idea to log on. But you can't just start playing, you know, you have to make up a character. So I spent hours doing that. And then I spent a really long time walking around in that world looking for him. So last night I log on. I am so excited. I'm walking around in this world, and suddenly I see him. There he is. And he looks over and he sees me, and I'm looking at him, and he's looking at me. Oh, no. Yeah. I just wanted us to have some fun, you know?
Oh, it sounds like fun.
I mean, he didn't even know it was me.
Oh.
Yeah. It's kind of pathetic, really, isn't it?
And then that clip there is a really good example of the fact this is a drama. It's not a big sort of thriller or anything. It's just literally a drama about these three characters dealing with the loss and how they all affect to it and react to it and how it affects them and the whole thing of their life and, you know, the whole thing of moving on from it. And it's a brilliant drama. And I saw this at the cinema, and I genuinely saw it when it came out and thought, it looks okay, you'll see what it's like. I like Gabriel Byrne, I do admit. Jesse Eisenberg, I generally am not, you know, take him or leave him. In this, he actually is very, very good acting. But the surprising one is Devon Druid, who I've never seen before, and is absolutely brilliant in this film. The drama between him and Gabriel Byrne's character, their tension and the way that he reacts and stuff is extremely well done. He has some scenes that you have with just him and his friend, and he's talking about things much like that clip there with Gabriel Byrne talking with his lover. Is basically Conrad talking with his friends about his problems with his father and the relationship, and it's just interesting, the whole thing of covering it all from all the different sides and how they react. And I think it's a really, really good drama. It's definitely, I think, one of my favourite films of the year, possibly in my top 10.
Hey, we have to move on quickly because I know you want me to see this film. I've yet to see it.
Yeah.
There might be a chance I might be able to get round to see it. So depends on what kind of day I've got tomorrow. And even though I've got no job at the moment,
I hope you do see it, because I think it is a very, very good drama. I think it's very well done.
But I had to watch quite a few dramas, including The Man Who Knew Infinity, directed by Matt Brown. And again, it's got a simplistic storyline. It stars Dev Patel, who plays Ramananjan. Yeah, I'll just come with that anyway. And it centers around his life, specifically in 1910s in India, his home area of Madras. He's a mathematician, a very, very intelligent mathematician, and every single person that he goes to just absolutely dismisses him, laughs in his face, until he gets the attention of G.H. Hardy, played by Jeremy Irons, back in the UK. And so he's asked to come over to the UK to steer at Trinity College at Cambridge to prove his thesis regarding around infinity and integers and things like that. Here's a clip.
Let me ask you something. Why do you do it, any of this?
Because I have to. I see it.
Like Euler. Form for its own sake. An art unto itself. And like all art, it reflects truth. It's the only truth I know. It's my church. And you, just as Mozart could hear an entire symphony in his head, you dance with numbers to infinity. But this dance, this art, does little to endear us to certain factions who see us as mere conjurers. So if we are going to challenge areas of mathematics that are so well trod, we cannot afford to be wrong. I need you to attend your lectures, don't offend your professors, and keep doing your proofs. Otherwise this experiment of ours will be doomed to failure. Come with me. I want to show you something.
And so his whole thesis of sorts is all around about partitioning numbers. Now, partitioning in mathematics works like you take a really difficult sum and you split it up. That's the simplistic form of partitioning in mathematics. And this guy, Ramananjan, expertly created this and was able to work it out really well. However, his troubles of being able to prove it throughout the film is alluded to a lot by specifically the professors who are at Trinity College, apart from Hardy, who at first he's very reluctant, but the more he actually gets to know Ramananjan, the more he actually comes around to it and looks at his mathematical where he's actually able to work out these problems, specifically trying to get the integers up to as high as they possibly can. There is a professor which supposedly is just as brainy as him, and they both work out the exact same method to get up to a number that leads up to like 2.5 billion. And he comes around to Ramanujan's way of actually creating these integers and partitions. And now, a lot of what I've just said there is probably making a lot of people's eyes gloss over and going, this movie is going to be boring me. And it's a drama. It's a very slow-paced drama. It's very well acted. They've gone with a very stereotypical actor in Dev Patel. But I think Dev Patel actually handles the role really well. Jeremy Irons is very good in the film. You've also got Toby Jones, and in a small little appearance you've got Stephen Fry's character. And so it's a very well acted film, nicely shot. It tries to action up the movie at times, which it doesn't need to do that. It's a movie that's about mathematics. It's a movie about the creation of partitions in mathematics. It's a movie about breaking down algebra to describe it in its most simplistic form, even though you look at some of the formulas on display and your head just explodes. I find that stuff quite fascinating in a sad, pathetic way. But it's a movie that I actually quite liked. But it will not attract a lot of people. A lot of people will just be really bored by it. Me, however, I found it quite interesting.
I really enjoyed it. I think it's a great performance from the two kind of leads in it, with the two actors going head to head and back and forth, and I just thought it was really nicely done drama.
Yeah, but I understood.
The numbers thing wasn't such a big thing to me, as much as I get it, and I have that whole thing of it because it has that kind of beautiful mind element to it. That wasn't a big part of it. It was more just the character and him dealing with the kind of the stops that are put in his way, overcoming them,
that's sort of I actually found the mathematics stuff quite interesting as well. That's why Primer makes a lot of people's head scratch. It made my head bleed, but I still found that film really interesting.
Okay, moving on to The Wave, or its proper Norwegian title is Bolgen or Bolgen. It is a story, sort of a disaster movie thing about a potential wave that will happen when there's a... If you know anything about sort of geography, geology, you have this whole thing of these fjords that are basically kind of like a lake river sort of system, which are sort of created by erosion over thousands of years. And it means then there's these kind of just big built up waterways which have loads of cliffs and mountains around the side of them. And the risk is that potentially one of these mountains eventually, after they have soil movement and stuff, that could have collapse, and it causes a big massive tidal wave, which is basically like a tsunami along a lake of sorts. This is about one village in Norway. It basically is a movie that is, if you've seen the film Dante's Peak, it's essentially kind of the same sort of thing, only without a volcano and about this risk of a big tidal wave coming and taking out a big holiday destination thing. The thing is, it's not being an American film. It is all subtitled. It's Norwegian, I think, is the language, but it's the main character is played by Christopher Jonah. It is a really good film with a great performance by him. It is a high level above the sort of the American type of disaster film. It doesn't have the cheesy thing of there's not a dog there or anything like that. It does have these characters that are set up, but it doesn't have the cheesy moment of going, that person's going to live, that person's going to die, that person's going to die, that one's going to get it. It doesn't have that sort of a thing. But it's just a really good drama, and it's an hour and 40 minutes long. And the thing is, though, it has the whole thing of the disaster that happens and everything, and then it has 20 minutes or so after that, which is the whole thing of the characters dealing with it afterwards. It's not just, the disaster happens and it's over and that's it. It actually has that, which is really different. I was kind of surprised that it did that. I thought, it's going to be boring. It's not. I got into it, had fun with it, really good, and it's a really great disaster movie that's very different from the atypical disaster movie. So if you like foreign films, if you can sit there and watch it with subtitles, then do so. I believe it is available in dubbed, but you saw the dubbed trailer, didn't you?
Yeah, don't watch the dubbed trailer.
Yeah, it's ridiculously bad. I haven't seen it, but it's from what you're saying, don't bother with the dubbed version. Just watch the original film. It's a good film.
Well, I'm definitely going to watch it because I really like the director Rohag, who did Fritt Vilt, and who's going to do the new Tomb Raider film. And so if he did what he did for Fritt Vilt, re-injected life back into the stalker slasher genre, as what he's done with The Wave. By the sounds of it, it's sort of like re-injected something more dramatic back into disaster film.
Yeah, he should have done Independence Day too. He basically he's reinvigorated it after Roland Emmerich has basically kind of killed it.
Yeah, so I think I will actually watch this because he's a really interesting. So if that's the case, he's 2 for 2 so far. So I really hope that he does that with the video game movie with Tomb Raider. Criminal. Criminal is a perfect description of what this film is. It's directed by Ariel Vrooman. It centers around, well, Bill Pope's character is the main character at the start, like of the first 2 minutes of the film, played by Ryan Reynolds. Even though if you look on IMDb, he's uncredited, but he's got a character name. Which is a weird, strange thing, because normally an uncredited actor doesn't have a character name. Yet he's got a character name. He's a CIA agent on a mission in London trying to track down this big bad guy called the Dutchman. He's killed off, and then this interesting thing comes to light where a scientist in the form of Tommy Lee Jones's character, Dr. Franks, is able to transport the memories and everything that Ryan Reynolds' character knows into somebody else's mind. So they get an unwilling subject in the form of Kevin Costner's Jericho Stewart, who's a really bad guy locked up, and so they get him, they do experiments on him, implant these memories into him, and they use him to try and track down this Dutchman to bring an end to him, because he's got this thing which is able to release these missiles onto anywhere in the world. Here's a clip.
Your name is Bill Pope. I'm sick, Doc. I need some kind of shot. I need something.
Don't look at him. Don't look at him. He can't help you. Only you can help you. Your name is Bill Pope. You're an intelligence officer with the CIA.
Intelligence? What's my head?
Aspirin is not good for you, but this will help.
Billy, we had orders to put a bullet in the Dutchman's head. Right? But you forced the play because you thought you could trust him. You thought you could pay him off.
Billy!
Where did you put him?
Remember! Remember!
You got me confused with somebody else.
And so in that clip there, you heard Gary Oldman's character of Quaker Wells, and like I said, Kevin Costner in grumbly, sort of like bad mood fashion. Gary Oldman just screaming all of his lines. Tommy Lee Jones just hasn't a clue where the heck he is. He feels like he's just been took out of an old people's home just to be wheeled out to play the role of a scientist. And then Gal Gadot, who's she hasn't a clue what her character is doing. Michael Pitt, who shows up for a few scenes of the movie, who tries to look brooding, but it looks like he's got trapped wind. And just pretty much everybody involved in this movie. You've got a really good cast there. It's a really good cast that is just absolutely destroyed. The film itself is awful. It's stupidly badly paced. Nobody has a clue what the heck they're doing. Nobody has a clue what the heck the script is doing, what the script is about, where the storyline's going, what the plot is, who the bad guy is. Pretty much everything involved with this film. Nobody has a clue, and I don't even think the director does, because it's really badly constructed, extremely badly acted, just really badly written, really badly shot. It's just overall, it's an awful movie. It's a really awful film. It definitely lives up to its title. It's stupidly criminal.
Right, Misconduct, which is a small film directed by Shintaro Shimosuwa. It is a thriller which is centering around the character played by Josh Duhamel, is a lawyer who is brought into something by an old friend of his played by Marilyn Ackerman, who is, it turns out, married to a big pharmaceutical company owner who is having potentially deadly dealings, played by Anthony Hopkins. And there's this whole thing of the mystery thing going on there, and somebody ends up being killed, and the question over who killed them, and the thing of what's happening and all that kind of thing. And you have Al Pacino pops up as the superior lawyer who's there to basically, you know, do the and Al Pacino thing, you know, and you have this whole thing's going on. You have Julia Stiles, who plays a kidnap recovery agent, and all this sort of thing going on. And honestly, It's a mess. You think The Criminal was bad. This film is worse. This film, honestly, I sat watching it and I was like, what's going on? Who's done what? Who's killed what? And by the end of the film, as much as it does have a thing right at the very end that kind of explains things, you literally up to that point are just like, what? Who? What? How is this guy involved? What's this? I had no idea what's going on with it. I honestly could not tell you what happened in the film, only that somebody ends up dead, and by the end of it, I was then told very much at the end of it that this person did it. That's it. The rest of the film is just literally a kind of a whodunit of what, and you have Al Pacino popping up every now and again doing his Al Pacino thing and making threats and stuff, and Anthony Hopkins does his thing where he sits there across from him and makes the threat, and you go, how did the two of these people, especially Anthony Hopkins and Al Pacino, but you have Alice Eve in the film, Malin Ackerman, Julia Stiles, how did all these people get into this film, get connected with this film? I mean, who has blackmail material on them?
What I find interesting is Criminal made like 5-6 million at the box office. This made £97 in its opening week.
Yeah, it's
at the UK
and it deserved to not even do that well. It's awful. It's a horrible thing that it thinks it's being all smart and clever and flashy, and honestly, if I read this script for this, I think I would have burnt it.
I would have burned a Criminal alongside with you. Well, the thing what I find interesting is you've seen both.
Yeah, and this is worse.
So both in your top 10 worst films of the year.
Well, the thing is that there are things in Criminal that make it maybe 11, 12. Misconduct probably in the worst, but just.
Well, I will tell you this now. Criminal is definitely going to be in my worst.
Criminal. The thing about Criminal is that I like the idea of it. I like the whole thing of the idea of putting the memories in another person. I just think it's a.
It was
botched,
done in a movie
awful.
last year called Selfless.
Yeah,
with Ryan Reynolds.
yeah, and that was just as bad. That was a bad mess. That was a botched attempt as well. It's a subject that I love, that kind of sci-fi idea, but just nobody has done it right.
Okay then, Only Yesterday. Now, the reason why we're reviewing it, considering that the film originally came out in 1991, this is the first time the movie has actually been officially released on Blu-ray and DVD in the UK, so in Region 2. You can get it on DVD in America, just in its Japanese form, but you will never be able to actually get it in the UK. Now, it has been re-released with the proper English cast now, because it was re-released in cinemas a couple of months ago as part of a Studio Ghibli season. And so a quick review of it. It's directed by Isao Takahata. The original title is Mohide Poro Poro, which translates as Only Yesterday, and it's a very simple story. It centers around a 27-year-old I'll get my teeth put in properly. A 27-year-old who works in an office called Teiko, who you journey through her life. So you flash back to when she was a kid and how the fact that growing up with her family was really annoying, and the school that she was in, the girls cleaned and sorted out all the meals, etc. The boys just did what the boys did, plays baseball. But in the film, it centers around the female side of pretty much all the stories, and so about what her life was like as a young kid, and now up to when she's travelling to the countryside to go and live with aunts, and then ultimately falling in love. Very simple storyline, brilliantly, absolutely beautifully animated, but what do you expect from Studio Ghibli, especially from Isao Takahata? He has a knack of being able to take a very minimalistic look to it. For example, there's a scene where you see Teiko coming out of the school for the first time, and the sun is belting down, but what Takahata does, he goes for the minimalistic look, just a very plain white ground with just basic details on it, and then you see some painted backgrounds, and Ghibli handles that brilliantly. It's fantastic stuff. It's brilliant storytelling, absolutely captivating from beginning to end, absolutely gorgeous soundtrack running throughout. It's Ghibli at the best again. Simple storyline, but brilliantly, expertly handled.
Unlike Lazer Team, which is not expertly handled, is not a brilliant storyline. It is basically it's a kind of thing like Galaxy Quest, where you have a bunch of idiots, these four guys that are a mess of drunks and just really just characters you don't care about find themselves out in the middle of nowhere when a pod crash lands that is supposed to be coming to the military. It is an alien ship which carries a special suit. And these 4 guys put on the bits of the suit separately. So one of them has the helmet, one of them has one arm piece, one of them has another arm piece, and one of them has the shoes. Which means that they can do all these amazing things, but not really properly because they're supposed to all be worn by one person. It's a suit that's been sent by an alien race because the humans, because the planet Earth is going to be attacked, and humans have to defend themselves. And they do this by fighting off the attacker in a contest. And really, it's a film that is a YouTube movie. It was made because it got Indiegogo funded. The acting is terrible. It's just awful. It's a kind of it has a nice idea, and I wish it'd been done properly, and it had potential, kind of like Galaxy Quest sort of thing. If they'd done it properly, it would have been really, really good. It's just awful mess, horrible. Just not even funny. The gags aren't funny. The acting makes them even less funny, and the whole concept of it is just wasted. It's just a mess. Don't bother.
Yeah, it's YouTube Red, so it might be giving you the feeling of what YouTube Red stuff is going to be like, and it's from a group called Rooster Teeth. So that might also give you a feeling of what it might be like. If you've seen some of Rooster Teeth's comedy on YouTube, from what I can gather, that's exactly what the film is exactly like. They do lots of fart jokes and stuff. Men in Chicken, the final film of this week's show. This is a weird one. It's a very, very weird one. It stars Mads Mikkelsen. It's directed by Anders Thomas Jensen. And it centers around 2 brothers who discover that their father is not exactly their father, so they set out to find out where their real father is. They come across this town, which is only inhabited by about 40-45 people, and this abandoned insane asylum. Located inside this abandoned insane asylum is this guy with 2 children. They discover that this guy could, in fact, be their father, and that these 2 children inside there could be their inbred brothers. Living with them is a group of different animals, including chicken, and that's when the strangeness just begins to start. The movie itself is dubbed as a dark comedy, and I would actually say that the movie is a very, very, very dark comedy. This is comedy that you need to be your sort of like viewpoint of comedy needs to be pitch black to get some of the humour that's on display in this film. It's very well directed, very well acted by Mads Mikkelsen. He's the character that he embodies is really strange. The mayor of the town says if it wasn't for these mad people living in this abandoned asylum, then our population would be down to 35. So it gives you an indication of what the humour is actually like in it. This movie is not one of those movies which will divide people, because I think only about 10%, if that, would actually get this film. It's a movie that will pass a lot of people by, and it will find it really hard to latch on to some people. I thought the film was fine, but that's where I land on it. A lot of people will not get this movie at all. It's just strange and really, really weird. And that's it for this week's new releases, TV movies of the week.
I've got a few, but basically my picks for this week are Thursday night, film for 11:25 p.m. Bronson, which is the movie directed by Nicholas Winding Refn, starring Tom Hardy. Very brutal, very graphic, very much an 18 rated film, which is why it's on that late at night. But a really good film, and it's actually one that kind of made Tom Hardy stand out and be and really an impressive film, but a very hard watch. You have Master and Commander Far Side of the World is on Friday the 19th on Film 4 at 6:20 p.m. followed at 9 p.m. By The Purge, the very first film, which was a good sort of surprising small indie kind of horror film. But my choice of the week is on Saturday 20th on Channel 4 11 p.m. The Grey, which is the Liam Neeson crash plane one, sort of surviving out in the wilderness being hunted by a pack of wolves, and a really, really good character piece, sort of thriller.
That's directed by Joe Conhan, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
He went off to do the A-Team, and now he's writing the script for the Uncharted film.
Yeah.
Which I'm actually happy about, because I hope he does it very similar to
and is directing Bad Boys for Life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which that was something we didn't mention in the news because it had its name changed, didn't it?
Yeah.
And its release date released as well. My TV movies of the week, 2 I've gone for very early in the mornings of time. So on the Horror Channel on Wednesday the 17th, very early in the morning at 25 to 3. So I'm not actually going to say it's Tuesday night, is Livid, which is the Alexandre Bustillo, Julien Moreau French horror film. I really like them as directors. They make very creepy movies, and this one is really creepy. It's a home invasion film about 2 people who decide to break into this old woman's house to steal from her, but they discover a really terrible secret. It's on a stupid time of the morning, but if you're a night owl, and you want to watch a really creepy horror film, definitely that one. On Film 4 on Saturday the 20th, again at stupid o'clock, 2:30 in the morning. So that's very late Friday night, very early Saturday morning, is Maniac, the Frank Calhoun remake, starring Elijah Wood. It's really, really creepy. He's brilliant in the film. You very rarely get to see him. You only see him in a couple of tiny little scenes, but overall the film is stupidly creepy. Produced by Alexander Aja. But my film of the week is on Film 4 on Saturday the 20th, at night this time at 20 to 11, so at a time where you can actually watch it. Cheap Thrills. Now we reviewed Nerve in the cinema section, which is about people doing dares, and this has got a very similar tone to it. Pat Healy is in it, along with another guy who's accosted by these 2 supposedly rich socialite people who invite them back to their house. They're celebrating their wedding, and they tell these 2 people, if you do these challenges, we'll pay you to do them. And then the challenges get more and more extreme. It's really good. It's very well created, very well acted. Definitely watch it. I think it's a channel premiere as well for it, so definitely watch Cheap Thrills. So that's my TV movie of the week. What is your overall movie of the week?
It is The Shallows.
I would probably agree with you. The Shallows on cinema releases. DVD and Blu-ray, I would actually go with Eye in the Sky.
Yeah, Eye in the Sky, although because I really like Louder Than Bombs, and The Wave is one that I was really surprised how good it is as well. So Eye in the Sky and Louder Than Bombs, very similar kind of dramas, but very different in the subject, but very, very good films, both of them. So yeah,
Shallows in the cinema, and then there's a few movies to choose from on Blu-ray and DVD.
But not Criminal or Misconduct or Lazer Team.
Definitely not them. I would have probably gone for all yesterday, but you would have chastised me.
Yeah, or the Huntsman Winters War.
Yeah, definitely not that one either. And that's it for this week's show. Make sure you check out the website mondaymovieshow.co.uk to find out when the next show is going to be and the lineup of movies that we will be reviewing. Keep an eye out on Facebook and on Twitter as well. It's facebook.com/Monday Movie Show or at Monday Movie Show on Twitter. I'm there at Cryptic Tadpole, and who's there at HDVD. We're very rarely on there, to be honest. We have no time. Me job hunting, Andy just getting ready to go away on holiday. Lucky you. You can email us at mondaymovieshow@yahoo.com. Do we check that? I don't even think I check that.
I get them forwarded to me,
So if you've got any emails, just send them there. Make sure you leave some feedback as well, whether it be on YouTube or on iTunes or any of the Android apps, just so we know that people are out there listening, and just tell us what you think of the show. Next week's show, we have a couple of horror films and things like that. You've chosen a clip to play us out on for
David Brent, Life on the Road.
Which oh god, I can't stand the character, so I'm definitely not it to
Me
review
neither.
the film.
I've said that already, though. I'm not doing it.
So even though we're playing a clip for it, we might not actually be reviewing the film on next week's show, but you never know. And so until next week, goodbye.
Bye-bye.
I'm sure you didn't mean to cause offence, David, but as you know, we have to consider everyone's feelings in the workplace.
Correct, Amundo.
You're happy to propagate a stereotype of Irish people being educationally subnormal or gay people being ridiculously camp?
Well, I never actually specify whether he is a homosexual or not, so that's in your mind.
What about telling sexist jokes to women?
Oh, you're saying I should only tell them to men? Sexist?
No, I'm saying you shouldn't tell sexist jokes at all.
Oh, okay.
I said something about bras.
Yeah, just harmless fun.
Go on.
What's the definition of a glass bra? Smash and grab.
Okay, well, violence against women is seldom a laughing matter.
Where's the violence?
You're smashing a woman's bra and then you're grabbing her breast.
Not literally, in a joke. And the violence isn't the funny bit.
What is the funny bit, David?
Honk honk. Funny noise, funny organs.